losing their breeding grounds, so to say. Now, look at the hotels. We have basically lost our beachfront. When I drive around Cape Coast, I feel sad because people are cutting down the coconut trees and turning the beachfront into sports and all that.
Yeah.
You see, when you lose your beachfront, you can't get it again. But we are watching, we are looking at people, and we travel everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And we see that people don't just destroy their beachfront, but we are destroying our beachfront. Yeah. And nobody is saying, come on, let's stop this and preserve. It's sad. You see these things and you're like, are we not, why are we so insensitive to our environment?
That comes about as you know, it points to the fact that Ghanaians love to sit in the beachfront and have fun.
So no, you see,
I've seen Cape Coast. I know just by the roadside. Yes,
I was in Portugal just last, and you know when my hotel, when they decided to give me the one that faces the beach, I had to pay more.
Yes, absolutely. Even here in Ghana. So when you're making some reservation, that's what happens.
You know what you have done?
Yeah.
Behind the hotel, they have actually paved the area all the way, and so there's a space behind the paved area and the beachfront.
Right.
So nobody is touching the sand around the beachfront. So there's a paved area, there's a street, and so nobody crosses the street onto the beachfront.
Right.
But here, the street, people have crossed the street and gone into the beachfront. That is wrong. That is not supposed to happen. And a number of things we have done, we are pouring stones everywhere to protect, because we've not done things right. I don't know why our engineers decided to do that. But you see, once you continue to reclaim because you probably have a situation of tidal waves, but it's not just the tidal waves. It's also because we have lost our lagoons,
right,
which are a collection point, and we've also lost our the green belt. That also helps to soak the water that is coming from the ocean in times of high tides. So the water has to force its way. And once it's forcing its way and it's coming into our homes, then we start crying. So we now have to go and find stones to block the ocean. And once you do that, you have lost the natural environment. And when you lose the natural environment, it goes with everything natural.
Great. Okay, so we keep saying that we are losing our fish stocks and all that all the time, but there don't seem to be any concrete research that would conclude this way. Is there?
So I think when you go to the University of Ghana, you go to the University of Cape Coast, a lot of students have done a number of research. But as usual, we don't work with our research. They will write nice research proposals, they will do nice research, and a lot of them, Prof. Nunu...
Well, it does appear as if we only rely on, complaints from fisherfolk when they go to sea and return with nothing, and they say the thing is not there, that kind of thing.
But how then did we know that we have more vessels than we require? It is that some people have done some research. In fact, when the USAID Sustainable Fisheries Management Project came up, there was this fine gentleman, a Moroccan actually. He was lecturing at the University of Rhode Island, and he did a lot of fantastic research. And in fact, he made a significant contribution for us to know the state of our small pelagic, particularly the Sardinella stocks. And he actually helped in forming the scientific and technical working committee or group to try, and they worked on the issue of close season and when it is appropriate and all that. So there's a lot of research that had happened, both by local people and international people. The challenge is that we need to have people who now say, look, we agree to work with science. And where we are, we've gotten to a point where we need to work with the science from the scientists, the science from the fishermen, and the observation from other people, and let's sit at the table and ask ourselves, what is it that we can do? You see, the Ministry for Fisheries, for instance, has only a small function when it comes to the maritime environment.
Right.
Their function is only related to fisheries and activities that affect fisheries. They have no role in the maritime transportation issue. They have no role in the hydrocarbon industry. They have no role in the gas pipelines. Right. They have no roles in the fiber optic cable. Even when it comes to fresh water, when the issue of galamsey came up, did you see the voice of the Fisheries Ministry in there? No, it's the Minister for Natural Resources.
Right.
But the biggest victim to galamsey activity is a fishery. Because fish has only one natural environment, water.
Yeah.
So whenever you destroy their water, the fish is gone completely. So we need to sit at the table, all of us, and discuss. Where are you going with our fishery? Are we deliberately destroying our fishery industry and say, look, we don't want to have anything to do with fish? If that is not the case, where do we start from? Because then we need to start thinking restoration. How do we restore the resources that we are losing? What is it that we can do? How do we make sure that we bring back some life into at least some of the water bodies and earmark them for aquaculture activities? How do we ensure that we probably thin the industry, take out people, and reduce the numbers that are in there in order to reduce incidents of illegal fishing? So it doesn't continue to be survival of the fittest. These are not projects you can do immediately, but you need to have an immediate, medium to long-term approach in dealing with them. You need to have a continuum, not one government. You need to have successive government agreeing that, look, let's focus on the fishing industry and save it. And so this is the blueprint. We'll work with it. We'll modify it as and when it's necessary.
Right.
But we need, as a country, to agree that this is outside partisan. This is in the heart of our livelihood, it's in the heart of our food security and safety. It's even in the heart of our safety as a people. Because, you see, these are young people. If they are not working, they will turn to crime.
Absolutely.
And a lot of them have turned to crime. If you go to fishing community, you find a lot of young people on drugs and doing all manner of things. So we need to take it serious. It's a national security issue, and we need to take it serious as a country.
Now, which one actually happens? When the water is polluted, what happens? Do the fishes die or they migrate to other places?
No, you see, if it's in the ocean, they may migrate into other areas and other species. But if it's in fresh water, it's limited. So once you pollute it, and they are gone. You get it?
Right.
And sadly, the pollutant won't stay there because the water is washing downstream. It washes anything. So any fishery that come in contact, and not just fishery, other aquatic mammals that may come in and may not be able to survive the pollutant are gone.
All right. Now, one phenomenon that used to be a challenge to fisher folk is the issue of kidnappings and robberies and attacks at sea. What's the situation at the moment?
Well, we've had some, I wouldn't say the situation is completely abated, but we have some abatement to this point because for a while now we've not had this. And interestingly, they are all our brothers from Nigeria who have been doing that. They are involved in the pirate activities.
Let's be circumspect. Let's not.
My company is
let's not generalize.
My company is a direct victim, and I had to negotiate with somebody from Nigeria. And finally, we had to bring the people from the Niger Delta area. So
and you paid a ransom?
And I paid a ransom. So it's not a speculation. I'm speaking as a matter of fact. That they kidnapped 5 people from my vessel, 1 Korean, 1 Russian, and 3 Chinese. So, and they place a value on each of them.
Wow. And is it huge?
Is it?
Is it huge?
It's huge. I won't mention, but it's huge. In fact, it's actually wobbled my company. So
$300,000, $200,000, $500,000.
I won't even allow you to
$1 million.
I won't even allow you to speculate, but it's wobbled my company. But you get it. So it's not like some speculation that this is something that I went through. Other companies have gone through because I was a secretary of the Tuna Association. So any challenge that came to any of the sister companies, I was right in the middle of it. So but like I said, we have to thank the Ghana Navy. We had some arrangement that made them board our vessels. So they warded them away a few times, and I think they've gone back. But we won't take it for granted because they continue to board other vessels in other jurisdictions, areas that are not within our EEZ. They made a few attempts and they didn't succeed, so they are looking elsewhere. But we are still on guard. We are not being complacent about it because it's really it's quite worrying when you get your vessel boarded and pirates take away your crew, and then you are there, and then a strange number calls you and say, well, I got your number, you are the director from the company, so I'm holding your men. I'll call you at 1 in the afternoon and 6 in the evening every day. And if the person calls...
Those are times for negotiation.
Yeah, the person calls and he starts talking and say, well, I don't think I want to talk again. And he switches his phone, or there's no way you could reach him. He had to flash you. And then he will tell you, sorry, excuse me. He will later tell you, okay, and they are using satellite phones.
Right.
I don't have credit on my phone, so buy credit. Otherwise, you can't talk.
So you have to send him credit.
You have to now send credit to him. It's such a frustrating experience.
It's quite insane, yeah.
Yeah, you get it. But we are trusting that we will put in place adequate systems and ensure that we protect our seafarers.
We are told that the Gulf of Guinea, which used to be the hotbed for some of these piratical attacks, is relatively calm now. Is that benefiting your operations?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that now at least we have some relative calmness, particularly for us. No vessel of ours from Ghana, no Ghanaian flag vessel had been boarded in a while now. And so relatively we are calm. But we are still on the lookout because the people are still there. And so we don't know when they will strike. The last time I was in Abuja, they had arrested a few people. The Nigerian Navy had arrested a few people, and I think the Chief of Naval Staff in Nigeria was addressing the press. Yeah. And they had been prosecuted and jailed or something. So if they take that responsibility in Nigeria and they deal with the situation, probably we'll have some peace in the Gulf of Guinea region.
Okay, so I just want to find out from you the recent interventions by the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development and the Fisheries Commission. They have what they call the legislative review, that's enforcement of a trawl GIA modification, among others. And what do you make of these, policies that are going to be introduced or that they intend to introduce in terms of modifying, operations in the sector?
I raised the issue that the issue of gear modification is one of the things that had delayed the trawl vessels because you now have a new design that is supposed to be exclusive, so it will fish your target fishery. For the trawl sector, they are supposed to do bottom trawling, so the target will be the demersals, the groupers, the red snappers, and so to the exclusion of the pelagic, which are the surface water fish, and we are yet to see the results. But you see, you need beyond just one design. If you want to do gear selectivity, you need to also look at what species you are targeting and what gears would be efficient enough to get those species to the exclusion of others. You get it? Because there are people who will do only shrimping. Unfortunately, we don't have shrimpers in Ghana. And their target is to get shrimps. And so you need to have some design that excludes other species that they are not targeting. So that majority of what they land will be shrimps.
Okay.
For instance, I do tuna. And so I have a gear that is designed purposely for tuna and tuna-like species. And so at least 90% or more of what I land should always be tuna or tuna-like species.
Yes.
And for my gear, for instance, you have turtle exclusion devices. So that when turtles happen to get in and trapped, the turtle is able to get out without being caught and stressed.
Okay.
And so those are what gear designs are supposed to be doing. They are supposed to ensure that you are not too efficient to get what you don't want. Because if that happens, what will happen is that you may have to dump them back into the ocean because you don't need them. Or it will enhance the issue of the cycle that we had dealt with over a long period of time. So that's what the new design is supposed to do. The legislative review is, Ghana is still under the EU yellow card, which is that we have been cited for IEU and
we don't take time, we'll slip to red.
Yes, and so some of the conditions for which we will have to come out of the yellow card include legislative review that would ensure that we minimize. You cannot entirely take out the bad ones, but you need to put the activities under control and minimize the abuse of the ocean resources by persons who deliberately or consciously decide to do things that would destroy the fishery. Because, like I said, we need to fish today and fish tomorrow.
Yes.
And so it's welcoming, but whilst we do that, we need to also embrace the fact that it's not just fishermen whose activities are causing the decline of our fishery. And that activities that may not necessarily be fishery or fishery related, but may significantly affect the industry and the resources therein.
Right. Okay. So at this juncture, we'll go for a break. I told you it would come your way with the happenings in the sector, in the course of the program. That's by way of local stories. And in the course of the week, the Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders in the Eastern Regional Capital of Koforidua held their annual general meeting. Also in the course of the week, we had the 2022 edition of Fish Festival. And then GOIL also has provided some specialized viewing centers for fans of football to watch the World Cup. Let's take a look at these stories and more.
The Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders GIF has held its 25th annual general meeting in the Eastern Regional Capital town of Koforidua to deliberate on how freight forwarders can maintain their relevance in a turbulent global supply chain. Speaking at the event, the Omanhene of New Jabin, Dasebre Nana Kweku Boateng III, appealed to freight forwarders to be honest in their dealings with importers and refrain from acts of distortion.
As agents, I will urge you not to take advantage of the country's precarious situation to overdo things. Thus, charge exorbitant fees, all in the name of exchange rate and fuel increment.
The president of GIF, Eddie Akron, said, in maintaining the freight forwarders' relevance, efforts should not be spared from venturing into ICT solutions whose dividend would endear freight forwarders to the trader.
Think of it. If we have the capacity to co-manage clients' inventory through the vendor-managed inventory systems, or help our clients by sharing this capacity, what should be the value of this relationship? Folks, our quest at using research and data to influence our future conversation at problem solving places us on a pedestal that demands quality and a certain higher level of responsibility as practitioners.
He appealed to the Minister of Transport to bring to finality some unjustifiable shipping line charges. The Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Shippers Authority, Benonita Bismarck, revealed that the authority, in collaboration with some stakeholders, have engaged the shipping lines in a bid to address some issues in the industry.
Under the direction of my boss, the Sector Minister, the Ghana Shippers Authority, in collaboration with the Committee of Freight Forwarder Associations, COFA, the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, GUTA, engaged the shipping agents in order to streamline processes and address the general service quality issues within the cargo clearance space, with a view to stemming the tide of arbitrariness in the introduction and increases in tariffs.
The Eastern Regional Minister, Honorable Seth Kwame Echampon, commended freight forwarders for their immense role in the global supply chain.
The various roles and activities carried out by the freight forwarder makes him indispensable in the current global supply chain. From customs brokerage to compliance, networking, scheduling, inventory management, warehousing, administration and documentation, the freight forwarder clearly maintains his relevance in the current turbulent global supply chain. Let us all rekindle our spirit in building our beautiful Republic Ghana together.
The Minister of Transport, Kweku Ofori-Siamam, averred that to ensure competitive business environments, there is the need to harmonize and standardize shipping line charges, negotiate for minimum service standards, and more importantly, build strong regulatory framework for enforcement and compliance. He noted that sustainable shipping is the future of the industry, hence the need to ensure that the maritime industry evolves along that trajectory.
Ensuring environmentally friendly ports, promoting regulation for green shipping through technology and renewable energy along the shipping value chain, are some of the interventions being pursued by government. Therefore, ensuring green logistics operation across the logistics value chain is a strategy that we must all pursue in our various capacities. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my expectation that this AGM will prefer solutions to challenges facing the supply chain industry. Freight forwarding is an important aspect of global trade and should be given the needed support.
20 fiberglass canoes are being distributed to fishermen along the 4 coastal regions of Ghana to promote sustainable fishing in the country. With the capacity to accommodate more than 15 fishermen per canoe in one fishing expedition, the fiberglass canoes were produced to reduce the dependence on Ghana's timber for canoe production. 2 of these canoes were outdoored at the maiden celebration of the Fish Festival in Accra, where stakeholders within Ghana's fisheries sector assembled to reflect on the industry and set objectives for the future. The eco-friendly canoes form part of the government of Ghana's Fishing Port and Landing Sites project, which is being supervised by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, the state agency mandated to implement port projects. The general manager at the Tema Fishing Harbour, Engineer Kwabna Samoa, explained that this initiative forms part of GPHA's sustainability drive.
We came up with this idea that why don't we include the fiberglass boats for the fisher folk because of the environmental issues associated with using the wooden vessels. So then the project managers bought into that idea, and GPHA contributed by providing land, especially at Takoradi, as one of the sites for the construction of this facility.
The head of projects at the company contracted to build these eco-friendly canoes, Meridian Logistics and Engineering, Eben Kwao, said these game-changing canoes are the future.
We will all agree that our trees has been cut extensively. Fiberglass canoe, aluminium boats, steel boats and the like. It's a transformation from us saving our forests. The old timber that we have all been depleted. The ones that we have, the quality is not best for fishing. So all the time, and I believe if you watch documentaries, you watch our fisher folk when they go to sea, they are always collecting water from the canoes. Leakage is very prominent. With fiberglass canoes, maintenance is to the barest minimum.
Speaking during the opening ceremony of the Fish Festival, Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Mavis Hawakumsin, intimated that government has embarked on a transformational agenda for the fisheries sector, with many initiatives ongoing.
Government has commenced the automation of premise fuel outlets across the country to help address the incidence of premise fuel diversion and hoarding. Survey on sites suitability has been conducted for the 300 landing beaches, and construction of 3 automated premise fuel outlets at Elmina for the pilot phase is almost completed.
The colorful event also saw participation from the Fisheries Commission, the National Fisheries Association of Ghana, Ghana National Canoe Fishermen Council, and the National Fish Processors and Traders Association of Ghana, among others.
I'm not going for a program or station. In fact, 5 the better many Jamie could go if you go for more money. If I go to all the brothers Sawidia, I'm already a check. What only this a good camus at Muyedu, a poker home by boy, why random you should go for a BPA, go to America. Why the Obia Yabi? Why are you there? At Injadiano?
Ela sa uta yu su kwara ira. Smoke bia ni unjinachi. Afa mufu anu sama o ka ni pulu. Me to kwara ira e chema me.
First me ko fa ke bi kana me ko fa no. Inji oya to gu mu no. Na nche bia na ka ni se. Ana me sisa na me ko gbe. Ba me sisa ni ko gbe no. In fact, e ko 2 years ni. Go oya na me gugu engine mu tim. Ebi o mesisa meko service a ye bia dama so ansa na mako change oya. Engine se na te no sa na te. Nti dia mesika ni se obi abato engine oya la. On talk boy.
So wo de bi engine and how de bi a share. Oya no be my engine ma o pepe. Eno no mo ti bi do. Itu pa oya ni atro SAE ebi a 5W8 and atro SAE 0W8 and atro 15W40 a HSA. And cold weather no ebe ye ejuma as a certain viscosity. Who warm weather ebe ye ejuma as a certain viscosity.
All right, so you're welcome back. Those were some stories that took place in the port and shipping industry in the course of the week. And tonight, remember, we're discussing the state of Ghana's fisheries sector. We're taking some perspectives from the tuna industry, but we're having an overview generally of what our situation has been as an industry, that's the fisheries sector in Ghana. And with us in the studios is Mr. Rickster Ni Ama Matthew, who is the Secretary of the Ghana Fisheries National Fisheries Association of Ghana, NAFAG. Levels don't change. He used to be the secretary of the Ghana Tuna Association, and so that's a huge promotion over there. Okay, so there are calls for the Ministry of Fisheries and Agricultural Development to expedite action to reduce the high incidence of cetacean bycatch. What is that?
Well, you see, when you are fishing, there are 3 products.
Okay, so before you continue, let me activate the phone lines. My producer tells me we can activate the phone lines now. The number to dial is 020-552-8353, 020-552-8353. You can call in and contribute to the discussion. Yes?
Yeah, you have 3 products. You have your target, what you set out to go and catch. You have your bycatch. They are not your target, but they are incidental catches. And then you have your discards. Your discards are the ones that you throw away and there is no problem. Because in some instances, they are not even fish, they are not edible and all that. And at no time should your bycatch exceed your target. Otherwise, your bycatch now becomes your target. But we have had instances where fisher folks have had more bycatch than their target. And that is what resulted in the cycle issue. Because the target for the trawlers had always been the harvesting of demersals, the high-valued redfish and the groupers and all that. So when the incident of harvesting a lot more small pelagic, like the sardinella and then the salmon, we don't have sardinella, and then the mackerel, and horse mackerel and all those ones, the round mackerel and all that, exceeds their target, then you can't say it's now bycatch.
Right.
But that is also not supposed to be their target. So now you need to put in measures to ensure that they do not harvest more of the non-targeted species compared to the target species. Okay. And that is what the ministry tried to do with the introduction of the new GA regime, which they are piloting to see. So what they've done is that they have reduced the opening significantly, and they've introduced a few measures to ensure that the non-target species are able to swim away, right, or not got caught in the so nets, you cannot have an incident-free bycatch, but as much as possible, you need to reduce it to the barest minimum. At least not more than 15% of your total harvest.
All right, so there's this yet to be gazetted 2022 to 2026 Marine Fisheries Management Plan. Yeah. What is it about?
Yeah, you see, the Fisheries Act requires that you have a fisheries management plan.
Okay. Before you tell us what that is, yes, I understand we have Masaudu, who is calling us all the way from the Upper East Regional Capital, Bolgatanga. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, please, Masaud, please flow.
Let me say good evening to your guests in your studio and your listeners across the globe. Your program is very, very interesting. And
thank you very much.
Let me also call and contribute one way or the other. Because in the course of the week, I listened to a news on City FM where there is, a hue and cry about the shortage of the, pre-mixed fuel. Nonetheless, I listened to the minister, Nilamte van der Poel, who is the minister for, one of the constituency in Africa.
He's an MP.
Ododo.
Yes, Ododo.
So he was lamenting because he is from the fishery, constituency. He was, and the way he was lamenting. It was so frustrating to the extent that now government cannot be able to, subsidize the pre-mixed fuel because listening to him now, government it is almost 80 cities to them. Meanwhile, government is subsidizing 10 cities to them. But I think that I listened to the PR of the ministry. He also but nonetheless, I think that the Minister of Fisheries should look into it at the end of the day because now the cost of fish in Upper East region, we are suffering at the end of the day. So if they are not being able to get the, what is the name? The fuel for them at the end of the day, we are going to be the end of the suffering is going to be we those from the northern part of this country because our money and other things we have been buying them for our locals have been buying them for their armies. And I think that if they get the pre-mixed fuel for them, I think that to lessen the burden and the cost of the our money for we people from the northern part of Ghana. Good evening.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. I will do all the way from Bolgatanga. Yes, he's talking about reduction in the price of premix fuel and all that.
Yeah, but I raised the issue that the premix is currently not available. For a while now, the fishermen have not had it. And so they are heavily dependent on what they are buying from the regular fuel pumps, and then they are mixing it themselves.
Yeah.
And it's been, the last time NAFAG issued a statement that the fishermen should keep calm whilst we engage government and the NPA to find a lasting solution. We are still in the process. We are engaged because it's a major concern. It's a troubling situation, and we do not want the fishermen to pour out now in frustration. But they are honestly frustrated with the issue of the premix because if they are buying from the regular pumps, you can imagine what they are going through, and they basically go fishing and bring nothing. They are piling up a whole lot of debt. And so we still urge government to look at the previous situation, and we need to do something about it. It's a very urgent situation that requires government attention.
All right. Oh, so you were about explaining to us what the year to be gazetted 2022 through to 2026 marine management plan is.
Yeah, so the Fisheries Act requires that the government comes out with a plan as to how it's going to manage the fisheries resources. You see, it's sad, but we treat fish as food. Fish is only food when it's out of the water. Once it remains in the water, it's a natural resource. And so you need to manage it as you manage any natural resource. For instance, fish species like the sardinella, at any spawning, will lay about 50,000 eggs. So if the fish is gravid, that is, if it's pregnant, at the time you harvest it and you eat the eggs, you are basically eating 50,000 of the sardinella.
Right.
The fish has a bigger value when it's at maturity. And at maturity means that it should have spawned at least once. And so if you go to the harbour and you buy a matured fish, you have a higher value. So the fisherman become better off buying a matured, for you selling a matured fish than selling juvenile or small fish that had not spawned. So any management plan will take into consideration how to ensure that you do not harvest the fish before maturity. It also would look at the fleet levels, the fleet numbers, the gear types, designs, the efficiency of the gear that the fishermen are using.
Right.
And so a management plan would always have to come with some scientific information as well. You even need to look at water quality, salinity level of the sea, and all of that. Because when you are managing, you are basically managing the habitat, the environment. In some instances, you may even have to think about introducing what we call the artificial reefs.
Yes.
Artificial reefs basically is to introduce...
Artificial reefs, please hold it there, hold your fire. Let's go onto the lines and welcome James from Botiano onto the show. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Two issues that I wanted to comment on.
Right.
The first one, it's about our canoes. Do we need to be using canoes this time of the whatever? Shouldn't we be using better, longer going vessels? The second thing is, how much of the fishing fleet now is owned by Ghanaians? Two issues. The first one, canoes. Shouldn't we be changing them for better ones? And second, how much of our fishing fleet is owned by Ghanaians?
Right. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Thank you for calling in. Yes, Rista. So he wants to know whether we should be going for some different types of canoes. And I think you saw the story, during the national...
fiberglass.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, so you see, there are two sides to his question. Whether or not we should change the canoe as a form of nature in terms of whether we should continue to use a dugout wooden canoe or probably a fiberglass, or that we need to have an improved technology where you don't need to use the kind, because the fiberglass is still performing the same function as the dugout canoe. Except that now you are not going to use wood, and so your cost of maintenance may be lower.
Right.
You get it.
But, and you preserve the forest as well.
Yeah, you preserve the forest, which is very important. But when it has to do with the changing technology, you see, these are artisanal sector, and probably everywhere in the developing world you have artisanal fleets. What we need to do is to manage the numbers. You can't take them out completely. You need to only manage the numbers. And you can only manage the numbers when you provide alternative for the people whose livelihood depend on fishing, so that they can have all the livelihood activities, alternative. But if you can't take them out, like I said, you have to manage the numbers. And so you need a policy intervention that ensures that the children of fishermen have access to education, they have access to other skills that will make them less dependent on fishing. And so then you can manage the numbers and probably bring the numbers down. But you can't take them out completely. If it's about changing the form and shape, which is the dugout wooden canoe, then of course the alternative is a fiberglass, which I'll go for at any time because I'm also conscious of protecting the forest. So that is my response to that. As to how much of the fleets are owned by Ghanaians, we work with laws, and I won't speak outside of the laws. For the canoes, the artisanal sector, the semi-industrial sector, they are completely Ghanaian owned, and you can't have there are no foreigners in there at all.
But the industrial?
When it comes to the industrial, for instance, the tuna, the law allows for 50% foreign shareholding or foreign ownership. The trust sector is absolutely 100%. Now,
when you say 100% what?
100% Ghanaian shareholding. Now, all the vessels, the companies that own the vessels are Ghanaian vessels, the Ghanaian companies. The vessels are flying Ghanaian flags. It is no gainsaying the fact that you have foreign investments in there and you have foreign crew in there. But you don't blame entirely the operators. Because if you live in a country where for a very long time you've not trained a single fishing crew, and you need to have advanced technology. For instance, in the tuna sector, all the captains are Koreans. Because you don't have a single Ghanaian captain in the industry. So how then do you put, because they need skills, the law requires that they should have certification, even engineers should have certification. And so if they don't have that, you can't rely on them. It's very expensive employing foreigners, but you don't have the crew. And even the banks, when you want money from the banks to buy your own vessel, the banks are not giving you. You don't have fisheries schools that are training, because you see, in countries you have fisheries economists, fisheries accountants, and all that. You need to learn how to manage the industry. It is a technical area. And so if you don't have fisheries schools that are training Ghanaians to even manage their own industry, it becomes a problem. So to solve that problem that everybody has had with having foreigners in our industry, we first would have to look at the rudiments.
Right.
How do we develop the Ghanaian entrepreneur in the fishing industry to be able to manage the sector efficiently? Because every Ghanaian would wish that, look, this business is entirely mine. But when you don't have the expertise and you don't have the capital and you lack capacity, you have to rely on somebody.
Absolutely.
And I think that we need to look at this subject matter holistically and have a plan as to what Regional Maritime University is doing, or if it is that they cannot do it, can we quickly develop the Admirable Fisheries College and build capacity in there? And even that you need to rely on foreigners to be able to build that local capacity that you need to get the local people to take up the management of the fishery sector.
Right.
So that's a challenge we have.
All right. Okay, so you were on the yet to be gazetted 2020 to 2020 Marine Fisheries Management Plan when the call came through.
So the law requires that you need to have a plan as to how you're managing all of the variables that I have. Because you need all those variables properly managed to be able to have a proper fisheries management regime.
Right.
And so a forward-looking plan would look at all these things and take in a lot of scientific input, look at the state in which we are, set up targets as to where we want to go from where we are, and how we are going to achieve that. But one thing the management plan should look at seriously is probably using the ecosystem-based fisheries management approach to managing our fisheries, which I understand. Of course, I was supposed to be on the implementation committee for the management plan, but since I left my position as a secretary of GTA, the new secretary had taken over that position. But it should be forward-looking and it should be ecosystem-based approach. What it means is that we should now also start thinking restoration. Because when you are fishing below 10% of your species, a certain species, what is that species is collapsed. And so, as we talk now, our Sardinella stocks are basically collapsed. So you can't manage something that is collapsed. You need to restore it. So we need to start thinking about restoring our fisheries resources. So to me, I think that what our management plan should be talking about is restoration of our lost fisheries. And that would include fishing grounds and freshwater environment, the brackish environment, and anything that has to do with fisheries. So now fisheries should be at the center of discussion when it comes to our water bodies and its management. Because when we are talking about the destruction of galamsey to our inland water bodies, what should be our central focus is that we need to restore the water bodies in order that we can have our fish back in those water bodies. If fisheries become central, then you realize that various management regimes in the natural resource sector would also consider the issue of ensuring that we are restoring our fisheries. So the agenda for me should be fisheries restoration. And that is what the management plan for 2022 to 2026 should be looking at.
All right. So this one says, good afternoon, Mr. Host. I am Martin in Kumasi. May I have Mr. Ni Amas contact? Okay, so I'm sure my producers would reach you backstage, and then when he's through, they would link you up with him so you can talk. So keep watching. As soon as we close, you can call the same line that you called, and then my producers would respond and then link you up with Mr. Matthew so that you can discuss whatever you want to discuss with him. So now let's talk about sustainability. We just want to find out how we can ensure that we sustain this particular industry and what role the fisherfolk themselves can play to ensure that we have continuity as far as this industry is concerned.
Well, one of the first things we need to take out is partisan politics from our industry. Because wherever there's partisan politics, you don't have consensus. Because people will play along partisan lines. And you see, one of the challenges the premium sector has had is the infiltration of partisan politics in the premise management. And so, the government needs to set up its policies, its programs like the fisheries management plan and all that, allow the technical people, right from the commission and the ministry, to do the technical things that they have to do. You need to bring in the universities and the research institutions to work together with state and industry to be able to fashion out how to deal with the challenges that we are currently confronted with. then it means that you have all the stakeholders at the table. I cannot proffer solutions to all the challenges that we have in the industry. But when you have all the stakeholders sitting at the table, and with the kind of knowledge that exists, because you see, all the 4 major universities, or the 3 major ones, have something to do with fisheries. University of Ghana,
University of
Cape Coast, and the University of Science and Technology all have departments.
And we've left out RMU.
Yeah.
Which is a regional institution.
RMU, yes, but they deal more with the training of the crew.
Okay.
But when we are dealing, they deal more with training of the crew and vessel safety and all that.
Right.
But when you have to do with the conservation of the resources, the management of the resources,
Oceans,
these 3 universities are training and turning out experts every day.
Yeah.
So we all need to sit at the table. You have civil society organizations that have fantastic knowledge hub that could be relied on to build some program that will see progress.
Right.
So we first need to identify and acknowledge that we have a challenge, and that challenge cannot be resolved by persons appointed only by the government,
right,
or that by industry people, or by the academic and research institutes. But you need everybody to sit at the table and talk.
Right.
Now, once we start talking, we'll be able to identify where all the loopholes are coming from. But like I am saying, you also need to bring the planners on board. For instance, why would you continue to build your storm drains and channel them into water bodies? It doesn't happen anywhere. So how do we restore all our natural water bodies?
Right.
Why would people be building along the beachfront? So the matter is beyond just the fisheries ministry or a department responsible for fisheries.
Right.
Or we have a national crisis when it comes to the fishing industry. And we shouldn't just take it on the surface. It's a major, deep-seated national crisis that has to be dealt right from the office of the president.
Right.
Because these are independent institutions that do not report to the Minister for Fisheries. They make their own decisions and do their own planning without recourse to the Ministry for Fisheries.
Right.
For instance, hydrocarbon extraction from our maritime space. The ministry responsible for petroleum or energy does not need the permission of the Minister for Fisheries in order to conduct a seismic survey.
Right.
But in the conduct of a seismic survey, you cause a lot of harm to marine mammals and to some fish resources. So, for instance, I've said this that in Namibia, at some point...
In Namibia?
Yes.
In Namibia. Hold it there. When we return, we'll continue in Namibia. So let's welcome Isaac. He's calling us from Accra. Good evening, sir.
Hi. I have a few things that I would like to ask Mr. Ama.
Okay. Please shoot.
First, I wanted to find out whether the ministry, can anybody take the ministry to a court for just in our ocean resources? And 2, which part of our constitution that says that local fishing is a human right? So these are the things I would like to ask.
Can you come again with the second one? The second one. You said which part of the Constitution?
Yes. Like if you take the Constitution of South Africa.
Yes.
It says that the local industry are the human rights, so they can take the government of that country into a court for just making a big industry to deplete their ocean. So I wanted to find out whether it's also applicable in Ghana.
Whether it's applicable in Ghana. Okay, all right, sure. All right, Richter.
Yeah,
so first of all, whether somebody can take the Minister of Fisheries to court for depleting ocean resources, and then secondly, whether there's a clause in the Constitution that permits,
Yeah, I wouldn't pretend to be a lawyer, so I think that the best thing is for him to consult a lawyer, for the lawyer to advise him, because he needs to have specific issues for which he is seeking relief.
Right.
And then the appropriate forum to seek relief will be available to him. So it's raising matters of constitution and matters that borders on law. And so the best is to consult a lawyer on exactly what reliefs he seeks to bring an action. Because you see, the maritime space, like I said, is not managed by the Ministry of Fisheries. The maritime space is managed by the Ministry of Transport. The Ministry of Transport is the overlord of the maritime space. And on its behalf, Ghana Maritime Authority manages it. The Ministry of Fisheries' responsibility is only to fisheries.
Fish resources,
You get it. So it depends on what you are looking at and what forum and which. But I know for a fact that probably you may have to see the Attorney General, who then acts because
that's government,
But he probably may have to see a lawyer for the kind of advice he's seeking.
Okay. All right. So you were on Namibia when he called it.
Yeah, so I'm saying that in Namibia, for instance, the president issued a fiat that no seismic survey should be conducted within a certain period because if that happens, it affects the Tuna resources. Yet, but we have not had such directive before. So if today, for instance, a company comes up and decides to do exploration and may have to do conduct a seismic activity, they will proceed and conduct their seismic activity, and we are not able to measure the impact. For instance, we are still disputing the reason that was given for the beaching of the 21 whales between 2009 and 2011, when oil activities picked up, because all the whales beached in around the Western region.
Western region. So hold it there. Let's pick Shalom, who is calling us from the Volta Regional Capital. Good evening, sir.
Yeah. Good evening, sir. I do appreciate your work so far.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to make a little contribution.
Shalom, can you speak up a bit, please?
Yeah, I would like to make a little complaint about what is happening at our place, at Hokwe, near the Volta River, the Dai River. There's a river called Dai. That's where the water west has been extracting their water from. For the domestic use at Hokwe. You can see that the river body is close to Zongo, the Zongo community. So the Zongo people have connected their drain, their waters into that river, and their toilets to that river. If you think I'm lying, you can send some people to come and investigate and see. The Zongo is near the Madrid Hotel and those areas there. They connect their big gutter. So if it's rain like this, they open their toilet and go, and it enters the river that you take. In fact, it is worrying. And I think to come to a time, there will be an epidemic there, and it worries us there. So that's why I'm just trying to call in. If we can find out a solution, I'll be much grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Shalom. We're grateful to you for your call. We're hopeful that the powers that be...
At least an assignment for that report to win.
Absolutely. You see that one here? Absolutely, yeah. So we'll do our bit and see what it is. Because what it is, the picture you're painting is a very sad one. And we'll take it to the authorities and powers that be and see what they can do about it. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, so you were in the Western region when the call came through.
Yeah, so I was saying that all those 21 whales beached along the Western region.
Yes.
And so, you see, you need a better and clearer particulars than just the explanation that the whales swallowed polythene and that they were suffocated by the fact that they swallowed a lot of polythene. And that also raises an issue of concern. The amount of polythene that we dump into our ocean, it's so worrying because it also affects like the marine mammal. So if it is true that the whales actually swallowed polythene and that suffocated them and resulted in their death, we still have polythenes.
Right.
Probably we've lost all our whales in the ocean. But you see, the incident is so close because those were the times we're conducting seismic survey. And for the benefit of those who do not know what seismic survey is, it's just like an attempt to see if you have oil in a well.
Yeah.
So you send out sound waves, ultra-high sound waves, into the benthic of the ocean to hit the well. So it brings back sound. So it's like when you are hitting a can. If it's empty, when you hit it, you know the sound that comes.
Absolutely.
And when it's full, you know what sound comes out. Now, that sound waves, because sea mammals like whale move by sound, it disorients them.
Okay.
And so if within a time, you are conducting a lot of seismic survey, it means that you are, and in most instances, when they are conducting seismic survey, the seismic vessel is somewhere, and then they want fishermen to stay away because of the noise pollution.
Okay, all right.
So you see, we need to be able to relate these things to some of the happenings, and that's what I'm saying, that you have various authorities conducting various activities. Because, for instance, if we know the migratory pattern of tuna or any other...
Just in 20 seconds, because our time is
any
up.
other resources, and you are going to conduct a seismic survey, it should be possible for the fisheries, if you have conducted a proper fisheries impact assessment, for the fisheries people to tell you that, well, you cannot do this at this time because around this area, around this time, we probably have so much.
Right.
For instance, the tuna people, we are not fishing... or we are not fishing on FAD, between January and March 13th.
Right.
Because the tuna species may be spawning. So we are regulated.
Yes.
But how much do we regulate the other activities when it comes to fishing? So the challenges are...
They are numerous. Great. All right, so we thank you very much, Rickster Niama Matthew. He is the Secretary of the National Fisheries Association of Ghana, and we've been looking at the state of Ghana's fisheries sector this week on Iron Port. We say thanks to our sponsors, Ghana Revenue Authority, Goyle Company Limited, Serene Insurance, Ghana Link Network Services, and indeed Meridian Port Services. Remember, the show is powered by the Ghana Port and Harbours Authority. The abridged version will be aired on Ghana Television on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Indeed, we would entreat you to keep watching the rest of our programs here as we wrap up tonight, and promising to bounce back next week with another wonderful edition. My name is Kennedy Mona. Many thanks for watching and have a super week ahead. Good evening.